Shark Stop.
Select your player. Let's go.
How's it going, guys? And welcome back to another episode of the Theme Park Shark Podcast. Today we are back with our Shark Stop segment with, of course, Alicia, Stella.
Hello.
We're going to do a quick update on Super Nintendo World for you guys today, primarily focusing in on Mario Kart because we had an interesting week this week, to say the least, with Mario Kart. Before we get into that, though, I'm going to throw it over to Alicia so we can kind of just briefly go over the current timing, what's going on at Hollywood, and the whole Epic Universe versus Kid Zone stuff that's been happening. So, Alicia, let's start from the top. What are you seeing right now for the timing in Japan?
Nothing has changed since we last talked about it, but we didn't really touch on it, that Universal Japan is waiting till the fall to give us more information, which is like their way of saying we haven't made a decision yet, just give us some time. Because the land is pretty much ready, as far as I know, to open. It's just a matter of waiting until they're ready for guests to come experience it. The park originally, when it reopened, was only open to the surrounding area, to like Osaka. And only just a couple weeks ago did they open the park up to all of Japan. So it might be just a matter of they're waiting for, to be able to increase capacity for the park, to be able for other visitors from other countries to be able to come into the park. Or, it's a highly interactive land with very cramped walkways. It just might be a thing where they don't feel like they can social distance and they have to just wait to open it until it's safer. So it could be a combination of things, and I don't think we're going to learn anything until the fall.
Now, there's a flight ban to actually get into Japan from, let's say, somewhere like the United States, isn't there?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we have a similar problem here in Orlando where, people might want to come to the parks, but A, there's not enough capacity to fit people in the parks, and B, the people can't even get here, like from outside of the country. And I think that's, a similar thing they're probably looking at there. Like, why would we open something and market it if no one can come and visit it? Yeah, so it's ready. And to be clear, just because they say they're going to give us information in the fall doesn't mean it's opening in the fall. I've seen a lot of people were reporting on it in blogs and things saying, no, it's opening this fall. And it's like, technically, they just said they're going to give us more information this fall. There's no telling when it opens. I doubt they know when it's going to open. They're probably, sitting on multiple contingency plans, and they're ready to go with one of them when certain factors line up.
The flight ban is actually something pretty important, though, that I've mentioned to a lot of people who really press me on Japan, because I've just said, like, guys, they're not going to open it without Orlando execs being able to get there. Like that's the first step of the equation here is we got to get some execs from Florida there to be a part of the opening.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, a lot of the people that worked on this and developed it probably still need to sign off on it even. So yeah, that's a very good point. I didn't even think about that. I'm worried about capacity and fitting people into the land and marketing. And you make a very good point.
I want to move again now back to California. We're going to go to Hollywood. I don't know if you've seen the construction progress there, but we get a lot of aerial videos posted. They're moving quick now, quicker than I expected.
I know. I saw a side-by-side comparison of like, here it is from a month ago and here it is now, and I'm like, whoa! It's like they're halfway done. Like they somehow they went from like skeleton bones to fully enclosed everything. Like it's incredibly fast. But I do caution people that fabrication houses have been closed, due to safety concerns, especially here in Orlando. And it's possible that they haven't fully finished a lot of the stuff because like after the steel's all put up for the land itself, it was pretty quick in Japan for like the facade of Bowser's Fortress, Bowser's Castle, and like all the walls and the pipes, the green pipes, the things, they all have to be installed, but they're created off site. So just because things are moving really fast on site, and Universal is obviously gung-ho about getting this done as fast as possible, doesn't mean that it's all up to them.
Well, hopefully we'll start seeing progress in that sense as well. I mean, I guess there's no telling at what point that those could reopen and start operating again.
Or if they're already done. They could be done. They could have fabricated everything last year when they were doing stuff for Japan. You never know. I caution that just because Universal wants to go fast doesn't mean they can.
For sure. I was comparing progress from Japan when they were this far out from technically completing. What did their world look like? And then I would do a lot of comparisons. I just said Hollywood looks so far behind. And then I've also tried to bring myself back to reality and say, well, Hollywood's not getting Yoshi, so how much time does that cut? If they're going to start moving quick now, how fast can they really do this, given that they already have all the information that maybe they've learned in Japan that they can start implementing really quick? what's going to happen. But I guess that's just a wait and see at this point. But it is exciting.
They could have been waiting on steel also, and when they got the delivery, they could be like, trying to make up for lost time. I know we have some smaller projects here in Orlando that we were waiting on steel, and there's a lot of things due to the global crisis that have slowed down production and delivery.
So we're going to do a quick update as well on Epic Universe and Kid Zone. What's going on with those two? Because I know that was a big topic in our last episode, and where potentially this is going to go. So what are we going to talk about here?
We did just talk about it. I was like, didn't we just talk about that? We did just talk about it. But I want to also caution that we were talking about talks that were going on and discussions that were going on, and not solid decisions. I think I mentioned that it could be the end of the year before a decision is actually made on whether or not to go forward with something. And that seems to have been reiterated in the last week. What I've heard is that just like the rides that were closing at Universal Orlando Resort, there's no reopening date for those. And I believe team members were told this is going to be at least through the end of the year. And that seems to be the line with a lot of decisions about Epic Universe, about Super Nintendo World, and maybe going to a different location, is let's just wait till the end of the year. I think that Comcast and Universal in general is hesitant to make any big decisions right now because things are changing at such a rapid pace.
It'll be interesting to see how the next few months pan out until that point, because as we mentioned in the last episode as well, things just change so much, and we get new information pretty much every single day, which I'm sure makes these episodes even more interesting as well, just how frequently things are changing right now.
If you think about it, it's like, well, if Epic Universe is going to, be farther out than we want it to be, then we bring Nintendo to the other park. Or on the other hand, if by the end of the year they decide, things are looking up, we can just hold out. It'll, we'll stick with the Epic Universe location, and we'll do it like we were planning. I also wonder if they're worried about building Super Nintendo World fast, if we're still going to be in a social distancing and a not interactive theme park like frame of mind, because this is a smaller, cramped, it's not like a small land, but the way it's double decker and the way that the walkways are, it's going to be difficult to social distance. A lot of the stuff is, every ride is interactive, and every queue is interactive, and a big part of the land is like being able to interact with different things and play games together. Like, to be in a small space and play games with strangers is like the last thing we probably want to do right now in the parks. So they might just be waiting to see how long we're going to be in that type of world.
I mentioned earlier in the episode that we've had an interesting last few days in terms of Mario Kart.
Yeah.
We had a leak, and we got a really good look, not only at, I guess, a website that is being built for Super Nintendo World and to kind of promo it. We also got a really good look at the ride vehicles from Mario Kart. Now, I'm not going to show them in this episode, but I think it would be really cool if we kind of just talk on what we saw and kind of go over everything that happened. I mean, we got ride stats, we got some bombs dropped as far as possible technology that's going to be used. There's a lot going on. So what's some of the initial takeaways that you got from some of those images that came out?
Yeah, and the internet has been scrubbed of these. It's probably going to be the website when they're ready to promote the new land. But the developer didn't want it to be out this early, and I don't blame them. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it said the name of the ride was Mario Kart Koopa's Challenge. And I was just like, I want to start with that. Uh-huh. Now, Koopa is what they call Bowser, I think, in Japan. And I remember the original old school Super Mario Brothers. We used to call him King Koopa. In America, I'm guessing it would be Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. But we've been calling it the Mario Kart ride. When they first announced the land, they called it the Mario Kart Experience. So we might have a title. It might be Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge.
Now, do you like how that translates to our side as Bowser's Challenge? Does that sound as cool as Koopa's Challenge? It is
Koopa Chupa. No, I do like it. I think Bowser's Challenge sounds really nice. I like having a little subtitle there under the Mario Kart, just so that it, we can differentiate it from the video games.
So we got a lot of cool things. I mean, we got to look at the mobile app UI. We got to look at some areas of the land that we haven't really seen in depth, because they kind of did like a 3D fly through of the land. So we kind of got to see some of the details there. So that was pretty cool. We saw a ride time, and it looked like it was, what, 5 minutes? Is that right?
Yeah, it had a little like a round, like an estimated squiggle. So
Right.
around 5 minutes for the ride time. And this could have been the web developer plugging in things though. So I wouldn't take
Sure.
it like, let's just put it under the rumor category or the unconfirmed category. But right under that, it says number of riders 4, which we can see in the images. So that's definitely
Right.
confirmed. But it also had the height restriction, 42 inches, or under 48 inches must have a supervising companion. So like these are interesting details. It's interesting to see ride stats as if the ride's coming, because we know it's coming, but now this feels more real.
Do you think those height restrictions are potentially also plugins, or those could actually be more accurate?
Going by other Universal attractions, it feels like that could be accurate, but again, unconfirmed.
Right.
I liked that right above that, where it says Mario Kart Koopa's Challenge, it did say that this will be an experience that takes you through a number of courses. And like I've talked about in my previous articles and videos, how this ride is going to be almost like a best of mashup of different courses from the Mario Kart ride, like the Mario Kart video game. So to me, that's interesting to see a little confirmation of like, we're going to see lots of courses, but also they touted like the technology involved.
So about that, they were pretty blunt, and they mentioned AR actually by name. So they said AR technology, with the latest technology unique to the park, the race is in front of you. So that is legitimately, you're going to be seeing something through AR. So what are the chances that this ride actually opens with AR?
This is okay. Here's a caveat for this though. These images that were leaked from the website this website was being developed in March. This is before they, put a pause on opening the land. This is before we were in a COVID world where maybe interactive technology is not the best thing. And it also might have been before they realized that the AR technology wasn't ready yet. So lots of caveats here. I've heard that it's possible the ride isn't going to open with the AR goggles. And maybe it's a little telling that the promo images that were included in the mock-up website didn't show anyone with goggles on.
Right. So how does that work?
Wait, and let's talk about the images though. Like,
Okay.
These are similar to like that music video where you see the Mario Kart ride vehicle like superimposed into the fake world, and you can kind of see it's like stadium seating, 2 people in the front, 2 people in the back. It's got a big Mario logo on the front. And with these 4 riders though, they didn't have goggles on in the music video commercial, and they don't have them in these images. But they are shown throwing Koopa shells. Like,
That's what's interesting.
digitally added, like superimposed Koopa shells in their hands, and it looks like they're throwing them. So how does that happen? How do digital shells appear above your head if you're not
Right.
using some kind of augmented reality? And it, like it says, augmented reality will be on the ride. It's written right there. I don't know if like the ride was to open without augmented reality. Does that mean we don't get to throw the Koopa shells? Which, by the way, every person in the car had a different color shell, which kind of reminds me of like Toy Story Mania, where you have different color ammo. That way you can tell the difference between you and the person next to you. So if you're throwing a red shell and I'm throwing a green shell, then we know who's hitting what. Which is a really neat feature. We learned that from the image, I guess. Just how
cool.
they would do it. I mean, people have mentioned to me like, well, aren't they working on technology for augmented reality without glasses? And to which I go, what?
That's what I was going to say, is just given this concept art, they're clearly showing people throwing shells. They aren't wearing the goggles. So would they mix and match and have someone utilizing the technology without utilizing it without the glasses? Like, do you think they're potentially coming up with a way to get this done? Maybe there's not legitimately a shell in your hand, but maybe you throw your hand and then all of a sudden you see a shell like out in the open.
Right. Like, what if they were doing projection mapping of some sort and they're watching your motion? Or they're all wearing power-up bands. The power-up bands are the things you can buy to interact with the land. And I noticed that they're all wearing them in the hands, on the arms that they're throwing the shells with in these images. So maybe they're tracking your motion, and then a projected shell just like shoots away from your car onto the backgrounds, like the live action backgrounds around you have projection on top of them. And that's their way of getting around not having the goggles, But I will say that in the history of this attraction, which was being developed since we're going on what, 4 or 5 years now. It was
Right.
always intended to have augmented reality goggles. Very early on, it was not just special items, but other characters and parts of the set itself were going to be included in the goggles. So you'd be seeing reality around you, and wherever you look, there'd be additional things added on top of it. Going through Rainbow Road, there would be all kinds of different colorful things floating around your head and stuff. Characters would approach beside you in your goggles and not in reality. But as they went through testing, they learned that they were relying too much on the goggles and that the overlapping of the effects and the reality just wasn't working the way that they wanted it to. So they scaled down that technology's use until it was just, you get a special block, you get a special item, you throw the special item, and maybe your score heads-up display is displayed on the goggles. But, just because the ride doesn't open with the augmented reality goggles doesn't mean that they won't eventually be introduced into the ride. They might not be ready.
So we mentioned earlier that they are going to go through different stages, which they're obviously driving through. So if they are driving, why are there 4 steering wheels?
the question of the day.
That's not how driving works.
This is the biggest. Yes, and they're not. Are they wheels? They're more like little airplane driving steering columns.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely a steering wheel in the lap bar of every person riding.
Interesting.
Now, why?
I wish I knew.
I have some guesses, and I've collected guesses from other people. Now, here's something that we need to keep in mind, is that these images we're speaking of, but not showing, when we saw them, didn't seem to be actually from the ride itself.
Right.
They were probably taken before the ride was even done being built. I mean, certainly. And Universal has a tendency to take promotional photos at like the load area so they can control the lighting. They put up a green screen and then they just superimpose a background and they make everyone look like you're having fun, and they're all looking in different directions. They don't know what's going on. They're all smiling. And in this promotional picture, they're all holding the steering wheel and turning it in a different direction.
Right.
And there's a chain chomp coming up behind them, and everyone who saw this picture is like, "Oh no, another screen-based Universal ride." And it's I think it's just a promo image. That's not actually what the ride's going to look like. But steering wheels. Do you have a guess?
I don't know. Okay, so I've kind of thought about the functionality of that, and I've said, okay, there's no way this is going to be an all hands-on 4-person steering wheel. That can't work. That's not going to happen. At least I don't.
If the people on the right turn right, the people on the left turn left, does it rip apart?
And then I was like, okay, so are all of them potentially fake? And it's just almost like how Indiana Jones has a steering wheel that, is it like that?
It's just for show.
Yeah. Is there one primary wheel and then everybody else has a kitty slapped on wheel, like what you put on the passenger seat of a car on your dashboard?
The Maggie Simpson steering wheel.
Exactly.
It's a tracked ride. There's 2 tracks running side by side throughout the entire attraction, and there's no alternate version where they can get off track. So I doubt it has anything to do
that you see that the wheel can do to drift, or just is there any functionality there?
Okay, so here's my 3 theories. Theory number 1, and all of them involve augmented reality. Of course they do.
Okay.
Theory number 1, let's say you have something in your glasses or in your goggles that you have to keep in between the lines. And if everyone keeps in between the lines the best, if they steer through these virtual lines that are added on top of reality, then your ride time will improve and you can beat the car next to you. Like the Men in Black ride where you have a higher score. But this score is also dependent on your driving, I'm using air quotes, your driving skills, even though individually you're all doing something that has no bearing on maybe your speed. Maybe the speed of your vehicle goes a little bit faster or a little bit slower based on how everyone's keeping it in those lines. That's theory number 1. Theory number 2, they're just used for aiming and locking onto targets before you throw a special item. And again, it being your heads-up display in your goggles, you're lining up like a missile launcher. You're lining up a little crosshairs into the real world, and when you've locked onto it, you throw, and it goes to wherever you lined up with your wheel. Or, if you didn't have augmented reality, I guess idea number 3 is you just use the steering wheel itself to throw special items and you don't actually throw, and all of it was completely made up for the promo photos.
Yeah. What if those wheels aren't even there? Is that possible, or they got to be there?
They're built into the ride. I believe this was a photo of the real ride vehicle because it looks like the one from the music video. With the giant steering column as a lap bar. So I believe it to be real. It looks too complicated. There's even a patent that shows 4 steering wheels and a shifter and everything. And it describes how everyone would give input and then it would use that input to change the ride itself. So I think that the steering wheels are there. We just don't know what they do.
That's good speculation though. And I'm curious what you guys listening or watching, put in the comments down below. What do you think potentially those 4 steering wheels, how could that potentially be utilized to create an actual ride here and that it's interactive for everyone and not just one person? How do they go about doing this, and what exactly do you think the wheels could potentially do? And outside of asking you guys that question now, we reached out to you guys earlier on Twitter, and Alicia gathered some questions that you guys seem to have about this ride. So we're going to kind of do a quick run through of all of your questions that we picked up. And the first one that we got quite a bit, and it's kind of, we kind of touched on it earlier when Alicia said they were taking these promo shots in the load station. But the first question we have is how much of this is screen versus practical?
If they're going by the plans that we've talked about in the past, there's a good amount of this ride that is practical, more practical than most Universal attractions have been in recent years. Far more than something like Spider-Man, where the main stuff is on a screen, or even Gringotts, where you're stopping in front of a screen for so much time that the stuff in between is almost lost. This is more like everything you're seeing has foreground elements that are physical. You're going through one scene and there's pipes with flowing stuff out of them. The flowing stuff might be projection map, but the pipes exist. It's not just a screen with pipes on it. It's real pipes. You'll see maybe some projection mapped fire in the dungeon area of Bowser's Castle, but there'll be real brick walls. So not projected brick walls. So it's kind of like there might be Mushroom Kingdom clouds in the background, but there'll be characters and animatronics in the foreground. I'm really, I don't want to say there'll be no screens, because I believe there will be, especially in moments in between, where there's one moment where you fly from the ground up into the air, and I believe that there'll be, maybe the car will spin and there'll be a projection effect around you for a brief moment, where only you'll see projectors. But this is a little segue between bigger scenes where everything's practical.
I've actually been surprised how many people are still asking whether it's screen versus practical, given the amount of information that we've been trying to give. I think there's a lot of reason for them to be excited at this point. Don't get down on these pictures and think that it's going to be primarily screen-based. A lot of this, as you just mentioned, is physical.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of big sets that are completely physically built, that separate. They make it feel like you're really in the Twisted Mansion, because you're in an actual Twisted Mansion. And then, if there's going to be moving stuff, whether projection mapped or background screens, it's going to be to make the world look bigger or more colorful, but it's not going to be to make it all look fake, or it's not going to be Fast and Furious's tunnel. Right. No offense to Fast and Furious and your tunnel screen, but I really, especially in Orlando, we have that little scene beforehand where you go down the street and there's real brick buildings and cars outside, and it's oh, why can't the whole ride be this real? It's more like that and less like the 360 tunnel.
So they did ask us too, and I like this question a lot because I haven't gone over it too much on my channel. I know you've touched on it a little bit, but they're asking us about the queue. So is there anything extra about the queue that we could touch on, given what we know at this point?
Yeah, from what I understand, the queue starts with Bowser's Castle facade on the outside, and when you go in, you're in a foyer with different stairs leading in different directions, and one might be the main line, the express line, maybe a single rider line. So when you go down after the foyer area, the whole second level of this building is queue, maybe some restrooms and a gift shop, and the whole first level is the ride. So there's a lot of room for queue. I think majority of it would be Bowser's Castle, the portrait gallery, a library, and then a courtyard area, which actually will take you back outside technically, because I don't think they built a roof over sections of the building. So maybe a covered or uncovered courtyard area. So you're going out behind the castle and then you go back into the castle. But when you go back in, I don't think it's necessarily scary Bowser's Castle anymore. I think you go into like this training area with colorful trophy displays and a description of like different cup races. And this would be an area for training where monitors can teach you how to use the interactive features on the ride itself. So like this is a training area, but then from there you would go downstairs into the dungeon and you're back into the Bowser's, creepy elements with lava and fire.
So we have some questions left. So now I'm going to rapid fire them.
Okay.
And you can just say yes, no, as quickly as you want. We'll kind of speed around this one. Any animatronics?
Yeah, definitely cars that come up beside you. And someone said there's like a giant Bowser animatronic. I want to believe it. I just want to.
That would be pretty cool. Do all the carts look the same?
All indications are we got, the Mario logo, but you never know.
Will there be character impressions during this podcast?
It's me, Mario.
Yeah. That's my best one for you.
Ooh, hoo, hoo, ha.
Speed on this ride. Is it fast?
No, but it might look fast at some parts, especially when you're spinning or flying up or going down or skidding out. But I know it's a maybe Men in Black speed.
I'll answer this next one. Please say it's not a simulator. It's not a stationary simulator. No. Does it have a drop?
Not only does it not have a drop, I'm not sure if it has any elevation changes, but if it does, it would be very, very minor.
Are we going to spin over banana peels?
I really hope so. The ride system can spin. Why not?
Anything else other than AR that's potentially axed?
Well, I did want to mention, I think I mentioned it earlier, the earliest version of this ride had so much AR, it practically was 3D ride.
Would there be any difference between this ride at Studios or Epic Universe?
The plans for Epic Universe were cloned exactly one to one from the Kid Zone plans, 8.8 acres. So I would assume it would be exactly the same.
And I guess we can both try to answer this. If they move it from Epic to Universal Studios Florida, what's the anchor now at Epic?
Pokemon.
Yes, that's mine. Awesome. We're both
What
in
else
agreement
would it
there.
be?
It has to be.
It's the
Give us
biggest
a
IP
massive,
in
awesome
history.
Pokemon.
It's the most
Yes,
money-making
I'm totally on board with that.
intellectual property currently in existence. Why not?
All right, guys, I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. If you guys want to catch more of Alicia Stella, she has the Theme Park Stop on YouTube. She has the Park Stop podcast as well. And she is Alicia Stella on Twitter. If you guys are looking for more from the Theme Park Shark, you can find our podcast on Apple and Spotify. We are at themeparkshark.com. And of course, the Theme Park Shark on YouTube. But all right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's episode of Shark Stop. As always, I appreciate you guys being here and for listening and or watching. Take care. Have a great day. And we'll see you guys in the next one.